name is Donnell Ern Williams. My Muslim name is the teacher Ali Haroon Ali. And I got this name when I was in prison because I've been locked up for 37 years at the age of 17 for committing an armed robbery. And in the armed robbery, a guy in a bar grabbed a gun and we was touching for the gun and pulled the trigger. But the way the police wrote the story up, it's like I went in there and killed somebody. So, long story short, they put me away for 65 years. I was sentenced to 65 years. And once I got in prison, like I told you earlier, I learned, just hang it up.
A good young man.
So once I got in prison, I began to learn. And that was my goal, to learn who I was. And more importantly, what happened in that incident that I got caught up in following, being influenced by the neighborhood, by the so-called streets, as we call it, and lost my life in the process. So when I got in there, I determined to save my life, to find out who I am. And I found out who I was through education, reading, writing, and talking to a lot of people. But just like Mr. Brockmire, my awakening was when I embraced Islam. When I embraced Islam, it took me 10 years to take my Shahada. Because you got a lot of people tell these stories that when people go to jail, they become Muslims. No, that's not true. I was in jail almost 20 years before I took my Shahada. And the reason why is because I believe that God is greater than anything in this whole universe. And for me to play with that, that was my only fear. I didn't fear man. I never feared man. So I feared God. So until I knew I was ready to embrace this, I wasn't going to take no religion on. So it took me, like I say, all that time before I actually learned the Deen of Al-Islam. And I learned the Deen through study. I studied myself. I didn't go to be a Muslim because of somebody else. Or because, I was scared of the gangs and all that. No. I didn't have those problems. Because, first of all, like I said earlier, I grew up in the projects. I grew up in the worst scenario, a dysfunctional home, alcoholics, the whole nine. So my thing was to survive. And I learned to survive by doing the most educating thing anybody else, even out here today, can do. Find out who you are. I mean, really soul search yourself. Not because of somebody else. Not because I want somebody to love. Not because I want somebody to like me. But because you want to know who you are and where you come from and connect yourself with the supreme being, what we could all call God. You can call it Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, whatever you want to call it. Faith is believing in something greater than you. That's faith. Something greater than you. It's the bottom line. So like I said, after going to school, and fortunately for me, not like most guys that have been to prison, when I went to Patuxent Institution at the age of 25 is where I really began to grow, because in that place, this was the only jail in the state of Maryland that had therapy in it. So I actually...
Was this mental therapy?
It's mental therapy. It's called the Reconstruction. The program is based upon Reconstruction, to tear down what you've been taught and build you from the ground up. In other words, the things I believed that made a man was all a lie.
What was your childhood like?
My childhood was pretty much like anybody else. I was one of those kids that was defiant. I didn't like authority. I was taught not to like authority. I always been respectful because my parents and my grandparents always took me to church and all that, even though I never believed in none of that. I never believed in it because To see somebody go to church on Sunday and do all the other things throughout the week told me that that wasn't real.
Did you grow up with both of your parents in the household?
No, I grew up without a father. I don't know who my father is to the day, and I'm 65 years old.
Do you think that played a part in who you became?
Yes, it did, because it caused me to have anger issues. I had anger issues at a very early age.
How did not knowing your father cause you to have anger issues?
Because I always felt like my mother had relationships with men based on her, not her children. So I never got close to any of the men she ever dealt with. Never even obeyed them. That's why I say I was defiant. You know, if you told me coming out 9 o'clock, I'm coming in 11. You say come in at 6, I'm coming in 10. I ain't never obeyed rules.
On the flip side of that, you think had you grown up living with your dad and your mom not being in your life, you would have had anger issues?
No. No, I wouldn't have. I probably wouldn't have, more than likely.
Why not?
Because, first of all, see, my mother was uneducated also. So she had babies at an early age, I think before 18 and so forth and so on. She never finished school. So it's about not so much the system academics, but it's about the academics of life, how you learn to cope with life. My mother was a good mother. Don't get me wrong. She did her best to provide for her children. She did her best and sacrificed a lot of things to keep her children fed, clothed, is what we call the basics of survival. She did that. But what she didn't do was basically had authority over us to the point to where we wouldn't disobey her. Because the majority of my life, I was disobedient.
Before getting arrested and serving that time in prison, were you involved with crime?
Yes. Yes, I was very much involved with crime. I was always stealing from the little stores on Lumber Street. I was always breaking in something. I was always, like I said, I just was against authority.
How did you first get introduced to, I guess, crime? Because that's a different...
Well, when you live in the projects, it's the moment you step out that front door. It's what they call your safe haven. When you step out that safe haven, you were subject to the streets.
So up until the point where you committed that robbery, would you have considered yourself to be a criminal? Like that was your thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that your thing now?
No. It was never my thing once I went to prison. Once I got in prison, like I say, I began to learn how to grow up. I didn't know how to grow up. I didn't know how to take accountability. I didn't know how to be responsible. I didn't like people. I was kind of an introvert. I never expressed emotions. And that came from me not having a father. That's why I said I had anger issues, because I didn't know how to express emotions. Everything with me was physical. Everything with me was what I seen. I didn't believe in the unseen. I believed in what I see. And a lot of what I seen was a whole lot of lies by the society, by the educational system, by the so-called police. You understand? I'm one of them guys that experienced the ugliness of authority. You know what I'm saying? They beat me and I'll beat them. You understand what I'm saying? So it was like I always had an enemy. But the real enemy was me. I was my own enemy.
Did you grow up with siblings?
Yes, I had an older brother, older sister, then me, then 2 younger than me.
What's your relationship like with your siblings now?
We never had a relationship. All of them passed away. When I went to prison, all of them passed away, just like you just said. Most of my brother's siblings died from AIDS. They died in the 80s.
Is that from, I guess, drug use?
Directly from drug use.
Have you ever used drugs?
Yes, sir. I used drugs in prison. I used drugs when I came home, but I never used drugs consistently. Where most people got high every day and all that, I never really experienced that when I came home.
How were you able to steer clear from that?
because of what I know, because of my education, because of the things I learned about me that taught me to love and like me. See, whereas before I didn't like me, didn't love me. So whatever I did didn't matter. So when I start getting in relationships at this point in my life, God showed me that in order for you to make it and be a good father, because you never had a father, you have to be the example of what you never had. And that's what I became. And that got greater and greater as I got jobs. I started getting involved with people. I had clients. As a matter of fact, I became CMT certified, you know, what is a mad technician. I also was in a lot of group homes working, and I also worked for a lot of these companies that deal with people with mental issues, disabled and stuff like that. So that gave me purpose.
Did you use drugs any before going to prison?
Yes, I used a little bit. I really couldn't say I was really out there. I smoked weed, like he said, drank a little bit. I never liked drinking. I sniffed glue when I was a kid. But for the most part, the little few times I experimented with drugs, it was like, bam, and then I was in prison.
Currently, do you use drugs?
No, sir.
Why not?
I don't use drugs. I don't smoke. I don't get high, period, off nothing.
You don't need to.
Because God showed me my potential. God also showed me, which he kind of deviated from, my gifts. And my gifts are people. Because I learned that in order to keep me well, I have to understand the plight of other people. I have to be empathetic. I have to be compassionate. I have to be sympathetic. I have to be all the things that I don't want to happen to me. Because I have to wish the best for you by showing you. And the only way I can show you is by being a good example.
What do you think your purpose in life is?
My purpose in life is, like I say, they call me the teacher Ali. Because a lot of the people that I've met in these last 10 years I've been home, I've always been teaching. I've always trying to set the best example. Because I didn't believe in what somebody say out their mouth. I believe in actions. When you get a chance, come over here. So I went through all these things in my life trying to understand, like you just say, what is my purpose? So when I started to understand, God showed me through writing is where I express my emotions. I never grew up with a lot of emotions. I never had a lot of those, what they call feelings that people be, you know, say that I feel this, I feel love, I'm in love. And I never really experienced those things. You know, so I always judge people by their actions. You know what I mean? You couldn't get me with the, I'm going to shoot you with the whammy whammy, and I wasn't one of those type of people.
What do you want to be remembered for?
For the most part, I want to be remembered for my writings, but in my writings, I want to be remembered for my ability to hopefully touch another heart and change someone. That's what makes a difference to me. I want somebody to read what I've been through and what I write about to feel the magnitude of what it means to love yourself and love God and understand that God is greater than anything else in your life.
Do you have any regrets in life?
One, and that was the one I talked about in the beginning. I never knew who my father was. I've always wanted to know that.
If your dad was still around and you had one thing you wanted to tell him, what is it?
What did I do? for you not to want me.
Do you feel like people should hear your story and know exactly where you're coming from?
Absolutely.
When you was in jail and you did experiment with, I guess, drugs, what made you even want to do that?
Well, to be truthful with you, I never thought I was going to ever get out. Kind of answers itself. I didn't never thought I was going to get out because every time I went up for parole, it was like no matter how much good I did, it didn't mean nothing.
Were you scared being in prison?
No,
Was it dangerous?
of course.
Would you say prison is more dangerous than the streets, or the streets more dangerous than prison?
Well, and you can look at it two ways. Out here, they got guns. Ain't no guns in prison. But reality is prison is more dangerous because a lot of times in prison, things happen where there's no control, there's no escape. And that's where it's different. In the street, you can escape a situation. You can't escape it in prison. You got to deal with it, straight up.
Is it dangerous here in Baltimore?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How dangerous would you say it is?
On a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, a 10.
They're throwing drugs out?
That's how dangerous it is.
They feeding drugs to people.
You heard about the thing that happened on Penn North. You heard about a week after that it happened down on Pennsylvania Avenue. Me and him go out of here and go to our different appointments or wherever we go. You see people lining up for testers. So if somebody throwing something in the air and you thinking it's for free, when it can take your life. So that tell you how dangerous Baltimore is.
You should see some of the people that it affects, how they act.
Is this neighborhood specifically dangerous?
Yes, of
Yeah,
course. It's
all
Park
right.
Heights.
How do you stay safe?
I stay in my house. That's how I stay safe. I mind my business and
And
stay in my
in
house.
God. We believe in God.
Is there a time of day that I guess you wouldn't go outside?
Well, me personally, I don't go out a lot at night. And it's not because I'm scared or fear anything. I just feel as though there are greater things that I'm doing in my life than to be out like the old saying, why would you be out in the dark when all the bad things that happens in the dark? When you can go out in the light and do what you got to do and avoid the dark.
Where do you see yourself in 3 months?
In the next 3 months, I'm hoping to see myself telling my story to the world.
Yeah. Amen.
To the world. I want the world to know the goodness of God. I want the world to know the goodness of loving yourself and understanding who you are and how important you are. Because we all are connected. We can't even escape the idea that we're not connected. You know? You look back in the past and the things that's been brought to light. Each one, teach one, confined addicts seeking help, all these transitional houses that we got today, trying to help people to get off drugs. But the key to that is, do the drug addict want to change? See, everything begins with self. It don't begin outside.
Right.
Everything begins inside. And I just believe I have the formula inside me to help people to understand the formula inside of them.
If you could say something to someone right now to inspire them to be the best them they could be, what would you tell them?
I would let them know that they are very important to not only life, but to themselves. I would also let them know that whatever you want in this life, you have to earn it. It's nothing free in this life. It was never nothing free in the womb because God gave you a test inside of your mother's womb. So the things that we're experiencing now have already been written. But you have the power to change them. You have the power. by doing what you learn and understand your purpose is. See, your purpose will give you the opportunity to change your life. Because everything we do, and I use the word earn, and the reason why I use that word is we are people not willing to sacrifice or give up nothing. And that's where everything begins. That's where you open the door inside you. When you're willing to give up something for what you want.
And with that being said, we want to thank you for your time. We want to thank you for your honesty. And most importantly, we want to thank you for your story.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I mean.